The ship New Horizon landed on the dusty planet with a loud crash. Captain Jake Morrison watched through the window as red dust swirled around them like angry ghosts. This planet had no name except Xerion 7. It was supposed to be dead, empty, nothing but rocks and dust. But the sensors had found something strange under the ground, something big, something that should not be there. Jake was 45 years old and had seen many planets. He had short gray hair and tired eyes. He had been exploring space for 20 years. He knew when something felt wrong. This planet felt very wrong. "Sir, we're getting readings from below," said Dr. Lisa Parker. She was the team's scientist who studied old alien things. Lisa was 32 with long brown hair tied back. She always carried a scanner in her hand. "There's a structure. Down there. It's huge," Jake nodded. "How huge?" "Maybe 10 miles across. And it's still giving off power after who knows how long." Behind them, Corporal Danny Walsh laughed. Danny was 28 and always making jokes. He had blonde hair and a big smile. Nothing ever seemed serious to him. "Maybe it's an alien shopping mall," he said. Commander Amy Brooks gave Danny a sharp look. Amy was 38 and never smiled. She followed every rule. Her black hair was cut short like a soldier's. "This is a serious mission, Corporal. Everything's serious with you, Commander," Danny said. But he stopped laughing. Dr. Pete Kumar looked up from his computer. Pete was 29 and studied alien languages. He had dark skin and wore thick glasses. "The readings show the structure is about 1,000 years old. Whatever built it had technology we don't understand." Jake made his decision. "We go down and look. Lisa, Pete, you're with me. Amy, Danny, and 2 Marines. Everyone else stays with the ship." The team put on their spacesuits and left the ship. The wind was strong and full of dust. They walked across the empty ground toward a hole in the planet's surface. The hole was perfectly round and went straight down. "Stairs," Lisa said, pointing her light down into the darkness. Someone carved stairs into the rock. They climbed down for a long time. The stairs were smooth and perfectly made. No human could have cut them so well. At the bottom, they found a tunnel that stretched away into darkness. "The air is breathable down here," Pete said, checking his scanner. "There's some kind of life support system still working." They took off their helmets and walked into the tunnel. The walls were covered in strange pictures and symbols. The pictures showed tall beings with 4 arms and faces like crystals. The beings wore long robes and carried staffs that glowed with light. "The Vorthan Empire," Pete whispered, reading the symbols. "These beings called themselves the Vorthan. They ruled this part of space long ago." The tunnel opened into a room so big they could not see the walls. Their lights showed carved pillars reaching up into darkness. Everything was made of black, stone that seemed to shine with its own light. But in the center of the room stood something that made them all stop and stare. It was a statue of one of the tall beings. But this statue looked alive. It was 8 feet tall with 4 arms folded across its chest. Its face was beautiful but alien, with high cheekbones and large eyes that were closed. Its skin looked like it was made of crystal and metal mixed together. "Incredible," Lisa breathed. She walked closer with her scanner. "The material is unknown. It's like stone and metal and something else all at once." The statue wore a long robe carved with tiny symbols. Around its neck was a chain with a crystal that seemed to glow softly. Its face was peaceful, like it was sleeping. "Readings show complex machinery inside," Lisa said. "This isn't just a statue. It's some kind of advanced technology. Danny walked around the statue, grinning. Looks like a really tall, skinny person with too many arms. Kind of pretty, though. Don't touch anything, Amy ordered. We don't know what it does. Pete was studying the walls around the statue. The writing here tells a story. The Vorthan Empire grew very powerful. They spread across many star systems. They built great cities and ships that could cross the galaxy. What happened to them? Jake asked. Pete's face grew dark. Something called the Arbiters came. The writing says the Arbiters are beings who watch over the galaxy. When a species becomes too powerful, the Arbiters stop them. Stop them how? Lisa asked. It doesn't say exactly, but the Vorthan civilization ended very suddenly. Most of their people died. The survivors were put into a deep sleep as punishment. Jake felt cold. Humans had been spreading across the galaxy for 200 years now. They had colonies on many worlds. Were humans becoming too powerful too? Danny wasn't listening to the history lesson. He was still walking around the statue. You know what this reminds me of? That old story about the sleeping princess. The one where the prince kisses her and she wakes up. That's a fairy tale, you idiot, Amy said. Yeah, but look at her. She's beautiful in a weird alien way, like she's just waiting for someone to wake her up. Lisa was taking readings from every angle. The technology inside is still active. After 1,000 years, it's still running. Whatever the Vorthan knew about power sources, it was far beyond what we have. Jake studied the peaceful face of the statue. The being looked wise and sad at the same time, like it had seen terrible things and was trying to forget them in sleep. We need to document everything, he said. Take pictures, scan every wall, but don't touch the statue itself. We don't know what would happen. For the next hour, the team worked to record everything they found. Pete copied down symbols and tried to translate them. Lisa scanned the statue and the machinery in the walls. Amy and the Marines checked for dangers. Danny got bored quickly. He had never been good at standing still and being careful. While the others worked, he walked around the huge room. He found more statues in the shadows. These were smaller and seemed to be guards or servants. But he kept coming back to the tall, beautiful statue in the center. There was something about it that called to him. Maybe it was the peaceful expression on its face. Maybe it was the way the crystal around its neck seemed to glow just for him. Still sleeping after all these years, he said quietly to the statue. Must be having some really good dreams. He looked around. The others were all busy with their work. No one was watching him. Danny had always been the kind of person who acted first and thought later. It had gotten him in trouble many times, but it had also made him brave when others were scared. He stepped closer to the statue. The face was level with his own. The crystal lips looked soft, even though they were made of some unknown material. What do you think would happen if someone kissed you awake, sleeping beauty? He whispered. The statue said nothing. Its eyes stayed closed, but for just a moment, Danny thought he saw the crystal around its neck glow a little brighter. Without thinking about what he was doing, Danny reached up and touched the statue's face. The material felt warm and smooth, like real skin. Not cold like stone, that should have warned him. But Danny Walsh had never been good at paying attention to warnings. Danny looked around one more time. Lisa was still scanning the walls. Pete was copying down symbols. Amy and the Marines were checking the far side of the room. Captain Morrison was studying his maps. No one was watching him. Danny grinned and looked back at the statue's peaceful face. "Well, Sleeping Beauty, let's see what happens when someone finally gives you true love's kiss." He stood on his toes and pressed his lips against the statue's crystal mouth. The moment his lips touched the strange material, everything changed. The crystal around the statue's neck blazed with bright light. The light spread across the statue's body like fire. The whole room began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling high above. "Danny, what did you do?" Amy shouted, but Danny could not answer. His lips were stuck to the statue's mouth. Energy poured through him like lightning. He felt the statue's consciousness touching his mind. Ancient thoughts and memories that were not his own filled his head. Then the statue's eyes opened. They were the most beautiful and terrible eyes Danny had ever seen. They glowed with inner fire like stars. They were ancient and wise and very, very angry. The statue's 4 arms moved. 2 hands grabbed Danny's shoulders. The other 2 pushed him away from her face. Danny flew backward and landed hard on the stone floor. The being that had been a statue stood up. She was 8 feet tall and moved like flowing water. Her crystal skin caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. She was beautiful and terrible and completely alien. When she spoke, her voice filled the entire room. But somehow, Danny understood every word. "Foolish child of Earth," she said. Her voice was like music and thunder at the same time. "You have awakened me from my slumber of penance. In your ignorance, you have doomed your species to the same fate that befell mine." The team all pointed their weapons at her, but the being just looked at them sadly. "Weapons will not help you," she said. "I am not your enemy. I am your warning." Captain Morrison stepped forward. His voice was steady, but Danny could see his hands shaking. "Who are you? What are you?" The tall being turned her glowing eyes to him. "I am Keeper Zarathul, last guardian of the Vorthan Empire. I have been sleeping here for 1,000 of your years, waiting for someone foolish enough to wake me." "Why were you sleeping?" Lisa asked. Her scanner was going crazy, beeping and flashing. Zarathul's face became even sadder. "Because my people made the same mistake your people are making now. We grew too powerful. We spread across too many worlds. We took what we wanted without asking. And the Arbiters came to stop us." "Who are the Arbiters?" Pete asked. "They are the Watchers, the ones who keep balance in the galaxy. When a species becomes too dangerous, too aggressive, the Arbiters act. They have been doing this for millions of years." Zarathul walked to the wall and touched one of the carved pictures. It began to glow and move like a movie. The pictures showed the Vorthan Empire at its height. Great cities floating in space, ships that could travel between stars in seconds, billions of beings living in peace and wealth. "We were proud," Zarathul said. "We thought we were the greatest species in the galaxy. We took over world after world. We changed planets to suit our needs. We moved lesser species out of our way like animals." The picture changed. Now it showed dark ships appearing in Vorthan. Space. Ships unlike anything the team had ever seen. They seemed to be made of shadow and starlight. "The Arbiters gave us a warning first," Zarathul continued. "They told us to stop our expansion, to learn to live with other species instead of ruling over them. But we were too proud to listen." The picture showed the Vorthan leaders laughing at the warning. They sent their war fleets to attack the Arbiter ships. "What happened?" Jake asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. The Arbiters released a plague upon our worlds. Not a disease of the body, but something that attacked the very life force of our species. In 1 month, 99% of my people died. Cities that had stood for 10,000 years became empty tombs. The pictures showed the end of the Vorthon Empire. Empty cities. Dead ships floating in space. A once great civilization reduced to nothing. The few survivors were given a choice, Zarathul said. Die with honor, or sleep in punishment until another species was wise enough to learn from our mistakes. Danny was still sitting on the floor where he had landed. His head hurt, and he felt sick. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know. I was just fooling around." Zarathul looked down at him. Her anger seemed to fade a little. "You are young and curious, like my people once were. But your curiosity has consequences you cannot imagine." Amy stepped forward. "What consequences? What's going to happen?" Zarathul touched the crystal around her neck. It pulsed with light. "When you awakened me, you activated an ancient beacon. That beacon is now sending a signal across the galaxy. The Arbiters will receive it soon." "What will they think when they get the signal?" Lisa asked. "They will think that humans have found this place, that you are studying Vorthan technology, that you might try to use our knowledge to become even more powerful than you already are." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "How powerful do they think we are?" "You humans have colonies on 200 worlds," Zarathul said. "You have warships and weapons that can destroy planets. You change the environments of worlds to suit your needs. You move other species out of your way when they become inconvenient." She paused and looked at each of them. "You are following the exact same path my people followed. And now the Arbiters know you have found us." The room was very quiet. The only sound was the humming of ancient machinery in the walls. "What will they do?" Pete asked in a whisper. "They will come to judge your species," Zarathul said. "If they decide humanity is too dangerous to continue existing, they will end your civilization just as they ended mine." Danny finally stood up. His legs were shaky, but he managed to stay upright. "How long do we have?" Zarathul's eyes began to glow brighter. She was reading something in the ancient technology around them. "The signal will reach the Arbiters in 72 of your hours. They travel faster than light itself. When they arrive, they will pass judgment on all of humanity." Amy raised her weapon again. "We can't let you send that signal." "The signal has already been sent," Zarathul said calmly. "It went out the moment this young fool's lips touched mine. Nothing can stop it now." Jake was thinking fast. "Is there anything we can do? Any way to prove that humanity deserves to survive?" Zarathul was quiet for a long moment. She seemed to be listening to something only she could hear. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Perhaps. My people built 3 facilities across this sector of the galaxy. We called them humility engines. They were designed to test whether a species had learned wisdom instead of just gaining power." "What kind of test?" Lisa asked. "Each facility presents challenges that cannot be solved with weapons or force. They test whether a species can choose mercy over victory, whether they can value other life forms over their own desires, whether they can put wisdom before power." Zarathul turned to face them all. "If humanity can activate all 3 humility engines before the Arbiters arrive, it might prove that your species has learned what mine never did." "Might?" Jake asked. "The Arbiters make their own decisions. but it is the only chance your species has. Danny stepped forward. He still felt terrible about what he had done. Where are these facilities? Zarathul touched the wall again. A star map appeared in the air, showing 3 points of light in different star systems. One is hidden on a moon in the Kepler system. One is in an asteroid field near the edge of your territory. The third is in a star system that is dying, consumed by solar storms. Jake studied the map. The 3 points were thousands of light years apart. Even with their fastest ships, it would take weeks to reach them all. We'll never make it in time, Amy said. You must try, Zarathul said. Because if you fail, every human world will suffer the same fate as ours. Empty cities, silent ships, the end of everything your species has built. She looked directly at Danny. You awakened me with a kiss given in jest. Now you must help save your people with actions taken in earnest. Danny nodded. For the first time in his life, he understood that some mistakes could not be undone. They could only be faced with courage. What do we do first? He asked. Jake was already moving toward the tunnel that led back to their ship. We split up, send teams to all 3 facilities, and we pray that humanity is wiser than we think. As they ran toward the surface, Zarathul's voice followed them through the ancient halls. 71 hours and 37 minutes remain. Do not waste them. The team ran through the tunnels as fast as they could. Behind them, the ancient temple glowed with new life. Zarathul had awakened systems that had slept for 1,000 years. When they reached their ship, Jake immediately called his communications officer. Get me a direct channel to Earth Command, emergency priority. Sir, it will take 6 hours for the signal to reach Earth, the officer said. Send it anyway. Tell them we've found an ancient alien civilization. Tell them humanity is in danger. Tell them to prepare for the worst. While the message was being sent, Jake gathered his team in the ship's meeting room. The star map from the temple was still burned into his memory. We have 70 hours to reach 3 different star systems, he said. It's impossible with one ship. Lisa was working at her computer. I've run the numbers. Even if we split up and use every ship in this sector, we can only reach 2 of the facilities in time. Amy slammed her fist on the table. Then we're dead. All of humanity is dead because Walsh couldn't keep his mouth to himself. Danny sat in the corner, his head in his hands. He had not spoken since they left the temple. The weight of what he had done was crushing him. Fighting won't help us now, Jake said. We need solutions. Pete looked up from his translation work. I've been studying the symbols Zarathul showed us. The Arbiters aren't evil. They see themselves as gardeners of the galaxy. They remove species that grow too wild and threaten other life. How is that supposed to make us feel better? Amy asked. Because it means they can be reasoned with. If we can prove humanity deserves to survive, they might listen. Lisa's computer beeped. I'm getting readings from the temple. Zarathul is doing something down there. Through the ship's cameras, they could see energy flowing from the temple up into the sky. Streams of light reached toward space like reaching fingers. Jake's communicator crackled. Captain, this is Zarathul. Can you hear me? We hear you. What are you doing? I am sending signals to other Vorthon facilities across the galaxy. Some of my people may still sleep in hidden places. If they wake, they might help you. Why would you help us? Jake asked. We woke you up by accident and doomed both our species. There was a long pause. When Zarathul spoke again, her voice was softer. Because I see in humans the same curiosity and bravery that my people once had. Before we became proud and cruel. You remind me of what we could have been. A new voice came over the communicator. It was older and deeper than Zarathul's. "This is Keeper Vextar of the Northern Archives. I have awakened at Zarathul's call. How may I serve?" "Vextar, we need to reach the 3 humility engines before the Arbiters arrive. Can you help?" "I can do better than that. I can tell you what the tests will be." Jake felt a spark of hope. "Tell us." "The first facility, on the moon in the Kepler system, will test your ability to choose mercy over victory. You will face captured enemies. The test will only pass if you free them instead of using them for your own goals." Amy frowned. "That doesn't make sense. In war, you use every advantage you can get." "That is exactly why most species fail this test," Vextar said. "The Arbiters believe that a species which can show mercy to enemies might be wise enough to avoid wars in the first place." "What about the second facility?" Lisa asked. "The asteroid field near your border. That facility tests whether you can achieve your goals without violence. You will face guardians and traps, but the only way to pass is to find a peaceful solution to every challenge." Danny finally looked up. "And the third one?" "The dying star system. That facility tests whether you will sacrifice yourselves to save other life forms. You will find primitive alien creatures in danger. The test will only pass if you choose to save them instead of saving yourselves." The room was quiet. Each test seemed designed to go against human nature. "Humans are fighters," Amy said. "We survive by being tough and smart and not giving up. These tests want us to be weak." "No," said another voice over the communicator. This one was younger and female. "This is Keeper Nelara of the Southern Reach. The tests do not want you to be weak. They want you to be strong enough to choose difficult paths." Jake was making plans in his head. "We'll split into 3 teams. Amy, you take a fast scout ship to the Kepler system. Lisa, you take another ship to the asteroid field. I'll take the main ship to the dying star system." "What about me?" Danny asked quietly. Jake looked at him. Danny's face was pale and his hands were shaking. But there was something new in his eyes. Determination. "You come with me. This started because of your actions. Maybe it should end with them too." Over the next hour, the teams prepared to leave. The 3 Vorthon keepers sent them detailed information about each facility. Maps, translations, warnings about the dangers they would face. But as they prepared to split up, Zarathul contacted them again. "There is something else you must know. Something I did not tell you before." "What now?" Jake asked. "The facilities are not the real test. Everyone stopped what they were doing." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "The Arbiters have been watching your species for 50 years. They already know humans are aggressive and powerful. The facilities were never meant to change their minds about you." Jake felt cold. "Then what's the point? Why are we doing this?" "Because the Arbiters are also watching how you respond to the crisis. They want to see if humans can learn and grow when faced with extinction. They want to see if you can work together instead of falling apart." Amy's voice was angry. "You mean this is all a game to them?" "Not a game. A final examination. Many species become violent and selfish when they face the end. They fight each other instead of the real threat. They try to save themselves instead of their civilization." Nelara's voice joined the conversation. "But some species surprise the Arbiters. They show wisdom and courage even when all hope seems lost. Those species are allowed to continue existing." "So what do we do?" Pete asked. "Exactly what you planned," Zarathul said. "Go to the facilities. Face the tests, but remember that the arbiters are watching everything. How you treat each other, how you handle failure, how you respond when things seem impossible. Vextar spoke up. There is one more thing. The tests at each facility are designed to be impossible for a single team to complete. Impossible how? Jake asked. They require knowledge and skills that no one team can have. You will need to work together across vast distances, share information, trust each other with your lives. Danny stood up. So, the real test is whether we can act like one people instead of 3 separate teams. Exactly, Zarathul said. My people failed because we could not work together when it mattered most. Each Vorthon thought only of saving themselves. Jake looked around the room at his team. These people had trusted him for years. They had followed him to strange worlds and dangerous places. Now he was asking them to split up and face the unknown alone. Are we ready for this? He asked. Amy checked her weapon one more time. Ready or not, we don't have a choice. Lisa packed her scientific equipment. At least we'll learn something new, even if we die doing it. Pete gathered his translation tools. I've always wanted to see how other species think. This might be my only chance. Danny picked up his gear with steady hands. I got us into this mess. I'll do whatever it takes to get us out. As the teams prepared to leave for their ships, Zarathul's voice came to them one last time. 68 hours remain. Remember, the arbiters do not judge species by their mistakes. They judge them by what they do after the mistakes are made. Jake looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beings older than human civilization were traveling toward Earth. They carried the power to end everything humans had ever built, but they also carried the chance for humanity to prove it deserved to survive. All teams, prepare for departure, Jake said into his communicator. Let's go show the galaxy what humans are really made of. The 3 ships launched from Zarian 7 within minutes of each other. They flew off in different directions, carrying the hopes of every human who had ever lived. On the planet below, Zarathul watched them go. For the first time in 1,000 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. 3 ships flew through space toward their destinations. Each carried a small team and the hopes of all humanity. Commander Amy Brooks reached the Kepler system first. The moon hung in space like a gray marble, covered in ancient buildings that glowed with soft light. As her scout ship landed, Amy could see the Vorthon facility rising from the moon's surface like a crystal mountain. Team Alpha reporting, she said into her communicator. We've reached the first facility. Copy that, Amy, came Jake's voice from across the galaxy. What do you see? Amy stepped out of her ship with her 2 Marines, Sergeant Mike Torres and Corporal Ben Clark. The facility's entrance was a tall archway covered in symbols. The building is active. There's power running through it, and... Amy paused. Through the archway, she could see movement. There are people inside. Looks like prisoners in some kind of cages. Pete's voice crackled over the radio from the asteroid. Field. Remember what Vextar said. The test requires you to show mercy to captured enemies. Amy and her team walked through the archway. Inside, the facility was like a prison. Dozens of cages lined the walls. In each cage was a different alien creature. Some looked like giant insects. Others were covered in fur or scales. All of them looked afraid. In the center of the room was a control panel with symbols glowing on its surface. Amy recognized some of the symbols from the temple. This is the test, she said to her team. "We're supposed to free these prisoners." Sergeant Torres looked at the alien creatures. "How do we know they're not dangerous? What if they attack us when we let them out?" "That's the point," Amy realized. "The test is whether we'll take that risk to do the right thing." She walked to the control panel. The symbols seemed to show a simple choice: release the prisoners, or use them as guides to reach the next part of the facility. Amy thought about her military training. Every rule she had learned said to use whatever advantages you could find. Captured enemies could provide valuable information. They could be used as shields or bargaining tools. But she also thought about what Zarathul had said. The Arbiters were watching to see what humans would do when tested. "Torres, Clark, help me figure out these controls. We're letting them all go." It took them 20 minutes to understand the alien technology. When Amy pressed the final symbol, all the cage doors opened at once. The alien prisoners looked surprised. Some of them ran toward the exit immediately. Others approached Amy's team carefully. One of the insect-like aliens spoke in clicks and whistles. Somehow Amy understood the words. The facility was translating for them. "Why do you free us?" the alien asked. "Because it's the right thing to do," Amy said. The alien's large eyes studied her face. "You could have used us to help your mission." "Yes, but then we wouldn't deserve to succeed." The alien nodded slowly. "You are wiser than most species who come here. Follow me. I will show you the path to the heart of the facility." Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Parker had reached the asteroid field. Her ship weaved between floating rocks the size of mountains. In the center of the field was a facility that looked like a metal flower, its petals opening and closing slowly. "Team Beta reporting," she said. "I can see the second facility. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time." Lisa's team included Dr. Pete Kumar and Marine Tony Silva. As they approached the facility, defensive systems came online. Energy beams shot out from the asteroids around them. "Warning shots," Tony said, checking his weapons. "They want us to know they're armed." "Vextar said this test requires us to find peaceful solutions," Pete reminded them. "No violence allowed." Lisa flew her ship in a slow circle around the facility. The energy beams tracked them but didn't fire directly at them. They were clearly meant as a warning. "There," Pete said, pointing at symbols carved into the largest asteroid. "Those symbols mean, speak your purpose in the old Vorthan language." Lisa activated her ship's communication system. Speaking slowly and clearly, she said, "We come seeking wisdom. We wish to learn, not to conquer." The energy beams powered down. A docking bay opened in the side of the metal flower. Inside the facility, they found a maze of corridors and rooms. Each room contained a different challenge. Some had puzzles that could only be solved by working together. Others had doors that would only open if the team showed they trusted each other completely. In one room, they found 3 buttons on opposite walls. Pete had to press his button while Lisa and Tony pressed theirs at exactly the same time. If any of them had tried to trick the others, the room would have filled with sleeping gas. In another room, they faced robotic guardians that attacked anything carrying weapons. Tony had to leave all his guns behind and walk through the room defenseless, while Lisa and Pete solved a puzzle to shut down the robots. "This is harder than fighting," Tony said after they passed the guardian room. "Fighting is simple. This requires faith." Captain Jake Morrison and Danny Walsh were having the hardest journey of all. The dying star system was being torn apart by solar storms. Radiation levels were deadly. Gravity waves from the collapsing star made navigation almost impossible. Team Gamma reporting. Jake said into his communicator. "We've reached the third system. It's as bad as we expected." The facility was built on a small planet close to the dying star. The planet's surface was covered in lava and lightning storms. But through their ship's sensors, they could see something else. "Life signs," Danny reported. "There are creatures down there, hundreds of them." Jake looked at the readings. "They're primitive, like early mammals. The planet is dying, but they don't have the technology to escape. So the test is whether we save them or save ourselves," Danny said. Jake nodded grimly. Their ship could carry maybe 50 of the creatures. There were over 300 on the planet. And every minute they stayed in the system, the radiation damaged their ship's engines. "Jake, this is Amy," came a voice over the radio. "We've completed the first test. The facility gave us information about your location. There's a way to save all the creatures, but it requires someone to stay behind and manually operate the planet's old evacuation systems." "Stay behind how long?" Jake asked. "Permanently. The radiation will kill anyone who operates the system for more than a few minutes." Danny looked at Jake. "I'll do it." "No. We'll find another way." "There is no other way, Captain. You know it, and I know it." Danny's voice was steady now. All his joking and carelessness was gone. "I started this whole mess by being stupid and reckless. Let me end it by being smart and brave." Over the radio, they heard Pete's voice from the asteroid field. "We've completed the second test, too. The facility here says the 3 tests are connected. They have to be completed in a specific sequence." Lisa's voice joined the conversation. "The sequence represents the growth of a species. First mercy, then wisdom, then sacrifice. Each test builds on the last one." Jake was running calculations in his head. "How much time do we have?" 18 hours until the arbiters arrive," came Zarathul's voice from Zarion 7. "But Jake, there is something else. The tests are not what they seem." "What do you mean?" "I have been in contact with the other keepers. We have learned something new about the arbiters' methods. The facilities are not the real test." Amy's voice was sharp. "You said that before. What's the real test?" "How you work together when everything seems hopeless. The arbiters are watching to see if humans will sacrifice themselves for strangers, if you will trust each other across impossible distances, if you will choose the harder path when the easier one is available." Jake understood. "Danny, we're not leaving you behind." "But Captain..." "No. If this is about working together, then we work together. All teams report in. We're going to solve this as one group, not 3 separate teams." Over the next hour, the 3 teams shared everything they had learned. Amy's team had gained the trust of alien prisoners who knew secret routes through space. Lisa's team had learned to operate Vorthon technology without violence. Jake's team had found a way to save primitive creatures who couldn't save themselves. Working together across the galaxy, they combined their knowledge. Amy's aliens provided maps to hidden paths through the dying star system. Lisa's nonviolent techniques were used to communicate with the planet's evacuation systems. Jake's determination to save everyone drove them to find solutions that seemed impossible. In the end, they saved all 300 creatures from the dying planet. They opened peaceful communication with a dozen alien species. They proved that humans could choose cooperation over competition, even when their own survival was at stake. As the last evacuation ship left the dying star system, Jake's communicator crackled with a new voice. It was deeper and older than any they had heard before. "This is Arbiter Prime. We have been watching your species with great interest." The moment of judgment had arrived, but Jake noticed something. They still had 6 hours before the deadline. The Arbiters had been watching all along, just like Zarathul said they would. "Arbiter Prime," Jake said. "We've completed the tests. We've proven that humanity can learn and grow." "Indeed, you have. But the final test remains." "What final test?" "You must choose. Save your own species or save the Vorthon civilization. We can restore one, but not both. The choice is yours." Danny looked at Jake. Amy and Lisa and Pete and Tony all waited for his decision. The hardest test of all was just beginning. The Arbiter's words hung in space like a death sentence. Choose between saving humanity or saving the Vorthon civilization. Only one species could survive. Jake stood on the bridge of his damaged ship, still in orbit around the dying star. Through the view screen, he could see the last evacuation shuttles carrying the primitive alien creatures to safety. His team had just proven that humans would risk everything to save strangers. Now they faced an impossible choice. "How long do we have to decide?" Jake asked. "You have already decided," said Arbiter Prime. "We have been watching you for the past 72 hours. Every choice you made, every action you took, every word you spoke, all of it was part of the final test." Amy's voice came over the radio from the Kepler system. "What do you mean? We haven't chosen anything yet." "Haven't you?" The Arbiter's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "When faced with captured enemies, you chose to free them instead of using them. When faced with defensive systems, you chose peace instead of violence. When faced with dying creatures, you chose to save them all instead of saving yourselves." Lisa spoke up from the asteroid field. "Those were the facility tests. You said we had to choose between our species and the Vorthons." "Look around you," Arbiter Prime said. "What do you see?" Jake looked at his ship's sensors. The 3 human teams were scattered across the galaxy, but they weren't alone. In each system, alien ships had appeared. Ships that looked like they were made of crystal and starlight. "Vorthon ships," Danny whispered. Zarathul's voice came over. The communicator from Zarion 7. "My people are awakening. All across the galaxy, Vorthans who have slept for 1,000 years are opening their eyes." "How is that possible?" Pete asked. "Because you chose to wake them," Arbiter Prime said. "Every time you solved a test through cooperation instead of competition, you activated ancient systems. Every time you chose mercy over victory, you sent signals to sleeping Vorthon facilities. Every time you sacrificed for others, you proved that both species deserved a second chance." Jake felt like his head was spinning. "You mean the choice was never between saving humans or saving Vorthons?" "The choice was whether to prove that 2 species could work together instead of fighting for dominance. The Vorthans failed this test 1,000 years ago because they could not cooperate with other species. You have succeeded because you learned to cooperate even with us." Amy was beginning to understand. "The real test was whether we would try to save everyone instead of just ourselves." "Exactly. A species that will sacrifice for strangers will not destroy other civilizations out of greed or fear. A species that chooses cooperation over conquest can be trusted with great power." Over the communicator, they could hear other voices joining the conversation. Vorthon keepers waking up in hidden places across the galaxy. Human ship captains reporting that alien vessels were appearing near their colonies. But the aliens weren't attacking. They were offering help. "This is Captain Sarah Kim of the cargo ship New Dawn," came a voice from near Earth. "I've got 3 Vorthan vessels here. They're offering to help repair our damaged station. What are your orders?" "This is Admiral John Roberts at Mars Base," came another voice. "Vorthan ships are sharing their technology with our science teams. They say they want to help us explore the galaxy safely. Jake realized what was happening. You're giving both species a second chance. We are giving the galaxy a second chance, Arbiter Prime said. Humans and Vorthons working together will be stronger and wiser than either species alone. Humans have curiosity and courage. Vorthons have wisdom and technology. Together, you might avoid the mistakes that destroyed so many civilizations before you. Danny looked out at the stars. What about other species? The ones we met during the tests? They will be your partners too if you choose. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders, but it also has dangers that no single species can face alone. Zarathul's voice was full of emotion. For 1,000 years, I dreamed of redemption. I never imagined it would come through the courage of another species. What happens now? Lisa asked. Now you go home, Arbiter Prime said. You share what you have learned. You help your people understand that true strength comes not from conquest, but from cooperation. You help the Vorthons rebuild their civilization without repeating their old mistakes. And if we mess up again? Tony asked. If humans or Vorthons become too aggressive in the future, then we will intervene again. But we do not think that will happen. You have both learned hard lessons. Pain and loss have taught you wisdom that success never could. Jake looked around at his small, damaged ship. 72 hours ago, he had been a simple explorer investigating a dead planet. Now he was part of something that would change the entire galaxy. Danny, he said, do you understand what you did when you kissed that statue? Danny smiled, but it was a different smile than before. It was sadder and wiser. I woke up more than just Zarathul. I woke up hope. Over the next several hours, the 3 human teams made their way back to Zarion 7. When they landed at the ancient temple, they found it transformed. The dark halls now glowed with warm light. Vorthon technology that had slept for centuries was coming back to life. Zarathul met them at the temple entrance. She looked the same as before, but something had changed in her eyes. The ancient sadness was still there, but it was mixed with something new. Joy. Welcome home, she said to the humans. You have given my people a gift beyond price. You have given us a future. We've given ourselves a future, too, Jake said. We almost lost everything because we were too proud to see the warnings. Pride comes before the fall, Zarathul agreed. But humility can come after. That is the lesson the Arbiters wanted both our species to learn. Over the following months, human and Vorthon ships began working together across the galaxy. They shared technology and knowledge. They helped each other solve problems that neither species could handle alone. Danny Walsh became something he had never expected to be, a diplomat. His experience with awakening Zarathul made him the perfect person to help humans and Vorthans understand each other. He traveled between worlds, telling the story of how a joke that almost doomed 2 species became the foundation for a new age of cooperation. Dr. Lisa Parker led joint human-Vorthon research teams. They studied ancient ruins and developed new technologies based on cooperation instead of competition. Commander Amy Brooks helped organize joint military forces that protected both species from the real dangers of the galaxy. Pirates, natural disasters, and hostile alien empires that had not yet learned the lessons humans and Vorthans had learned. Captain Jake Morrison continued exploring the galaxy, but now his ships carried mixed crews of humans and Vorthans. They discovered new worlds and new species, always approaching them with respect and curiosity instead of the desire to conquer. 6 months after the awakening, Jake stood once again in the ancient temple on Zarian 7. But now it was not a tomb. It was a living monument to cooperation between species. Zarathul found him there, looking at the wall carvings that told the story of the Vorthon Empire's rise and fall. "Do you ever regret what happened?" she asked. Jake thought about it. "Danny almost destroyed both our species with one stupid action. But that same action saved us both. Sometimes the worst mistakes lead to the best outcomes." "The Arbiters told me something before they left," Zarathul said. "They have been watching the galaxy for millions of years. They have seen thousands of species destroy themselves through pride and aggression. But they have rarely seen two species save each other through humility and cooperation." "What does that mean for the future?" "It means humans and Vorthons together might accomplish things that neither species could do alone. It means the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place." Jake smiled. "I think I can live with interesting." On the wall before them, new carvings were appearing. Vorton artists were adding to the ancient story. The new pictures showed humans and Vorthons working together, exploring the stars, helping other species, building a civilization based on wisdom instead of power. And at the center of the new section was a carving that made Jake laugh. It showed a young human kissing a tall alien statue. But instead of doom, the kiss was surrounded by symbols that meant hope, cooperation, and new beginnings. Danny Walsh had become a legend, the man who saved two species with the worst-timed kiss in galactic history. Sometimes, Jake thought, the galaxy had a sense of humor. In the depths of space, Arbiter Prime watched the growing cooperation between humans and Vorthans with satisfaction. Two species that had almost destroyed themselves were now helping each other reach for the stars. The test was complete. The galaxy was ready for its next chapter. And somewhere on a distant world, other species were watching the example set by humans and Vorthans. They were learning that true strength came not from conquest, but from the courage to choose cooperation even when it seemed impossible. The kiss that almost doomed two species had instead given hope to an entire galaxy. Sometimes the smallest actions have the biggest consequences. And sometimes, just sometimes, those consequences are exactly what the universe needs.